On this day, 136 years ago, Mary Jane Kelly was murdered at 13 Miller's Court in Spitalfields, London. And it's widely believed that she was the last victim of the notorious serial killer Jack the Ripper. And I want to make it clear in this video, we're going to be focusing more on the accounts of Mary rather than doing anything that could potentially glorify Jack the Ripper. Mary was originally from Ireland, and her family moved to Wales during her childhood. It's also believed that Mary was disowned by her family. At the age of 16, she was married to a coal miner, but her husband would die a few years into their marriage as the result of an explosion in a mine. Without a husband or family to support her, Mary moved to Cardiff, where she began to engage in sex work to support herself. In 1884, she moved to London, where she engaged in a variety of professions, including as a tobacconist and as a maid. She then made an acquaintance who introduced her to brothel work in West London. Mary was also invited to France by a client, but she returned back to England within a matter of weeks. She moved into a property in East London owned by a landlady named Mrs. Carthy. She then went on to share residences with various men, including a man by the name of Joseph Barnett. Mary and Joseph Barnett would relocate to various locations before settling in Miller's Court in Spitalfields. After Barnett lost his job as a fish porter, Mary turned to sex work again. She would also allow other sex workers to sleep in her room when she wasn't using it so they wouldn't spend a cold night out in the streets. This angered Barnett, who then moved out of the room. But he would still frequently visit Mary. He visited her for the last time on the 8th of November, 1888. They shared a brief conversation in which he apologized for not having any money to give her, and then he went home to play cards with his neighbors and fell asleep at midnight. Mary had a drink at the 10 Bells pub, and the 10 Bells is actually still standing in Spitalfields, so you can go visit it today. And a friend noticed that she left with a rather stout man with red hair and a thick mustache. Around midnight, a neighbor overheard Mary singing in her room. She did this until about 1:30 or so in the morning before leaving her room again. A witness reported they saw Mary walking through the streets around 2 a.m. on November 9th, and that she was approached by a figure who wore a large hat to conceal his features. The witness also claimed that Mary invited the gentleman to her room and said that he would be comfortable there. Another witness said that both the individuals appeared to be drunk. And a neighbor would go on to say that she heard someone leaving Mary's room at around 5:45 in the morning. Later that day, Mary's landlord sent an assistant to collect Mary's overdue rent. However, when the door wouldn't open, he forced his way in and found Mary's corpse. The landlord informed Commercial Street Police, claiming that it was the work of Jack the Ripper. Members of Scotland Yard soon arrived on the scene, and after taking photographs, they took Mary's body to a mortuary where she was formally identified. Descriptions of the crime scene and of the conditions of Mary's body are incredibly graphic and disturbing. The autopsy determined that Mary's throat was first slit and then mutilation followed. She was 25 years old at the time of her death. She was buried on the 19th of November, 1888 in St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Cemetery. Using a name that she had adopted in France, the gravestone reads, quote, "In loving memory of Marie Jeanette Kelly, none but lonely hearts can know my sadness. Love lives forever."